Getting to that Port of Darwin issue, the Chinese are pushing and shoving Australia to get the right result, at least as they see it, out of a recent review. Defence expert Peter Jennings will tell us exactly where that's up to in just a moment. But first, we'll go back to Victoria. The Andrews government today announced that all gas connections will be banned in new Victorian homes, apartments and government buildings from January next year as part of its plan to reach net zero by 2045, so a little earlier than the national target. Join me to discuss this, LNP Senator Matt Canavan. Matt Canavan, thank you. I know the Premier didn't make the announcement today. He pushed out his Energy Minister to do it. Let's have a listen to what she had to say.
Going all electric will save a new homeowner $1,000 off their energy bill each and every year. And if they've got solar panels, it'll save them $2,200 off their energy bills each and every year.
Well, put it to one side, Matt, that it'll actually send emissions up, not down, because electricity is brown coal in Victoria and gas is lower emissions. But this idea that it's going to make bills cheaper for Victorians, I can't see any evidence of that. And when I looked at all the information I could from Choice about hot water, gas tops, etc., they're all cheaper if the appliance is gas than electricity. So where does she get a number from?
Well, we've heard these kinds of promises before, haven't we, Peter? Infamously, the Prime Minister promised that we'd all be saving $275 off our electricity bills, and that's not happening. And I think these figures from another Labor minister as rubbery as what the federal Labor Party put to us before the election last year. I mean, you can make up any kind of numbers, and that's what seems to happen in this space. I mean, what this is clearly about is not about the climate. This is not going to do one thing for climate change or to save the planet. This is all about control. It's all about a group of politicians that like to control what you can do, what car you can drive, where you live, how you live, in this case, how you even heat your home. That's what this is about, because these savings, even if you were to shut off all use of gas in Victorian households, it would save 6 million tonnes of carbon emission a year. That's about the same as one coal-fired power station. And China's building 2 of those a week. So this will abate the emissions that are coming from just the new coal-fired power stations in China for just half a week, and that's if we remove gas from all households in Victoria. This has got nothing to do with the planet. It's all about politicians wanting to control your lives, and we should say no to it.
She said today, gas, she says, in Victoria is 17% of the state's emissions total, but this is a ban on residential gas, and residential gas is only 2% of emissions. So there's a lot of sort of half-truths and mistruths and, dare I say it, misinformation with the Minister's commentary today. The Sealy International, John Sealy, he's the MD of the company, Braemar, Breeze Air, big company brands that we would all know for gas heating and gas air conditioning. He put out a scarifying statement today. He said forcing people off gas causes more brown coal to be used in ageing power stations, increasing the strain on an already fragile energy grid. And he makes the point that I've just put up there too. This is only 2% of emissions in Victoria. So if it isn't going to reduce emissions, if it's not going to make power bills cheaper, I agree with you. I think it's about control. But it's always, I think, in Victoria, about Daniel Andrews setting the template for other Labor states, because this afternoon, Chris Minns asked the question in New South Wales, refused to rule out going down the same path.
Well, what we've got to do is make sure that people get their voice heard here on these sort of issues. We're seeing right around the world a backlash against this kind of stupidity, trying to tell people what to do with their lives. Over there in England, we're seeing a massive backlash against moves to stop people driving their cars around their own country. And likewise here, we should have a backlash against this. I mean, we've already seen people like Kyle Sandilands, doesn't necessarily always comment on day-to-day politics, but he's called out how ridiculous this is. Should we live in a free country, don't we? Shouldn't we be allowed to buy the kind of appliances we choose to heat our homes? And if you want to choose electric induction, if you want to choose gas to cook with and you like your wok, it should be a free country, because none of this is going to do anything for the environment. It will do nothing practical to help any one of our lives except empower those bureaucrats that want to rule and lord over us. So we need to have that kind of reaction here in this country before other states, as you say, use it as a template. If there is a reaction, if there is a big backlash, other state governments won't be adopting these stupid policies, because politicians will always put their self-preservation over any kind of desire to mimic their colleagues in the same party. But we need that reaction here against this policy. The pressure should come on Anthony Albanese to show whether he supports this, because this is right out of the most extreme Green Party playbook, this policy. And does the Anthony Albanese and the federal Labor support Dan Andrews telling people how they can heat their own homes?
What did you make? Look, you're a former resources minister, I'll say that at the top. What did you make of the comments from the BHP boss Geraldine Slattery today that Australia may lose its competitive advantage in mining? She said it's been built up for decades. She's concerned about the industrial relations changes. She says they're a real threat to productivity. And she also notes that young Australians are turning away from mining in their droves. She said the number of mining engineering graduates in this country dropped a whopping 74% between 2015 and 2022. I think that's probably the woke attack at universities. But what do you make of her comments?
Look, I think it's very concerning. I fear that we already have lost our competitiveness. I think we can regain it with some effort, but at the moment, this is not the place that I hear businesses wanting to invest in mining. You can see this week that figures came out from the International Energy Agency showing a massive rebound in coal production. Despite all forecasts, coal production hit a record around the world, yet it actually fell and declined here in Australia. It was Indonesia, China and India that picked up the coal production. Now, we've benefited from the high coal prices, but we're really living off the legacy of our competitiveness and investments that occurred decades ago. If we don't attract new investment, attract new people into mining, well, those rivers of gold will eventually dry up, because you've got to invest in new mines to replace the mines that come offline every year. And so we're living sort of on the hog at the moment, high on the hog in this country, off the bounty of a mining commodity boom, of royalties. Jim Chalmers delivers a surplus, not because of him, but because of the coal and iron ore that's behind me there, and the men and women that mine it. If we don't invest in this industry and seek to ensure that we remain competitive in it around the world, these jobs will go elsewhere, that wealth will go elsewhere, and we'll be much poorer for it.
At a time, of course, when our budget's groaning with that red ink in the next block of forward estimates, we've got an NDIS that's out of control, and we've got 1.5 million people on their way. Matt Canavan, thank you as always. Have a good weekend.